Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with chocolate-dipped coconut macaroons. That's right, there aren't many recipes, especially cookie recipes, that someone can make for the first time ever and achieve results just as good as someone that's been making them for decades. But believe it or not, that's exactly how simple these are. And one of the main reasons for that is we're going to be using a technique that we call in the business, toss everything in a bowl and mix it. Which, by the way, is not even as complicated as it sounds. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by adding some sweetened condensed milk to this mixing bowl. And yes, if you want, you can make these cookies with white sugar. And I've tried them both ways, but I do prefer the sweetened condensed milk for these. And then to our sweet and sticky, we will also add some almond extract. And just a few drops, since that stuff can be overpowering. And then after that, we will also toss in some vanilla extract of the pure and real variety, followed by a nice pinch of salt. And then last but not least, 1 egg white. And believe it or not, that is it for our base. We will simply take a whisk and give this a mix until thoroughly combined, as judged by you. And once that's been accomplished, it's time for our last and most important ingredient, some coconut. And basically there are 2 different kinds you can go with. Unsweetened, which is what I like to use, which tends to be fairly finely shredded. Or you can use the much flakier sweetened coconut. But no matter your choice, the next step is the same, as we're going to take a spatula and mix this all together. And while I do think using the sweeter, flakier coconut makes for a better looking cookie, for me, even though they might have a little better appearance, they're just too sweet. I mean, sweetened condensed milk is like one of the sweetest things ever, and then we're supposed to add sweetened coconut to that? I don't think so. But anyway, that's going to be up to you. I mean, you are, after all, the Haystacks Calhoun of your coconut macaroon, and that's a decision you're going to have to wrestle with. But either way, we're going to go ahead and mix that up until we have a sticky, sort of moldable mass. Right, this stuff has to be moist enough to hold a shape. So if you need to sneak in a little more sweetened condensed milk, go ahead. And then once we're happy with our mixture, we can go ahead and start shaping our cookies, which as usual, I like to do with a sorbet scoop, which I think is less messy and makes for a more uniform product. But instead of transferring those straight onto our pan, we're actually going to scoop them into this bowl of plain shredded coconut. And here's where things get a little hairy. And by hairy, I mean furry. Because by rolling these around in the coconut before we bake them, I think we're going to get a much nicer, much more interesting, and let's say provocative texture on the surface. So yes, this is an optional step, but it only takes a couple minutes. And seriously, what else you got to do? And then what we'll do once we've added a little bit of fur, as I like to refer to it, is go ahead and transfer these onto a Silpat line baking sheet. And I also like to make sure those are spaced nice and evenly. I also like to give super obvious advice. All right, raise your hand if you weren't going to space those evenly. And then what we'll do once those have been panned up is go ahead and transfer those into the center of a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes or so, or until beautifully golden, and hopefully looking a little something like this. And then what we'll do once these are out of the oven is let them cool completely before we serve them, which is not easy, but do your best. That's all we ever ask. And then what we'll do once these are cool, if we want, and trust me, you do, we'll go ahead and dip those bottoms in some melted chocolate, and we'll let those sit out until our chocolate hardens up, which I almost managed to do. And as you may notice, I'm not really a deep dipper, since I'm not really into a big bottom on cookies. So as you can see, I'm just going up about 1/8 of an inch. And that's it. Once that chocolate hardens back up, these are ready to enjoy. And there really aren't many better combinations than dark chocolate and sweet coconut, which is just one of the reasons this cookie is such a crowd pleaser. And then as far as the texture goes, we're aiming for something kind of moist and tender and a little bit chewy. And by the way, do as I said, not as I just did. Let that chocolate harden completely before you try to start eating these. Otherwise, there will be smears. And while I would be more than happy to just eat these off the table, I'm going to go ahead and transfer those onto a freakishly narrow platter so I can take a few contractually obligated pictures. And also so I could eat another one. Oh, and one last thing. If you're a fan of a certain kind of candy bar, I don't want to give the brand name, but it has almonds in it and it brings people joy. What you can do when you form these before you bake them is stick a roasted almond or 2 in the center. And then once these are dipped in chocolate, you'll be reliving that childhood treat. Or adolescent treat. Who am I kidding? Adult treat. But anyway, that's it. Chocolate dipped coconut macaroons. These really are amazing any time of the year. But for me, especially so during the summer. And not just because I associate coconut with tropical flavors, but also because they're very fast to make. And if you're bringing them to a cookout or picnic, they are almost indestructible. You can knock over a tray of these with a Frisbee, pick them up off the ground, put them back on the platter, and you're good to go. Try doing that with a French macaron. So for those reasons and more, I really do hope you give them a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.